What is good, guys, man? Thank y'all for tuning back into the channel, man. If you're new, make sure you hit that sub button down below to be notified for every single video that I drop, man. And if how you know you're notified, almost messed up, is when you hit that bell. You press all once you hit that bell. That's how you know you'll be notified once you subscribe. Alright, man. If you have not watched part 1 of this video, please go back and go watch part 1. This is part 2, like I promised, of the story time about her roommate telling her that he sold his soul to the devil. She said part 2 is going to be even creepier. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video, man.
Story about how my old roommate told me he sold his soul to the devil and then started acting very erratically and strangely. I was going to post the second part last night, but then my baby started crying and I was dealing with him, and then I went to sleep. I didn't expect the video to blow up, so I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting. Also, if you don't like all the details, just hold on the screen and click 2 times speed. I already covered how I met him, how he ended up moving in, and then how he told me he sold his soul and started scratching my walls. I felt like all those details were important. So the next few things that happened, I don't necessarily remember the order in which they happened. I just know that they all happened in the span of a few weeks after he was like, I caught him scratching at my walls. The first really weird thing was that one day I woke up and I went outside, and right outside my porch on the sidewalk, like leading out to the main street, was an entire severed deer leg. There was no gore or anything, but it looked probably fresh because there was still fur like completely covering it. I was trying to rationalize in my head how it ended up there. I thought maybe that an animal had picked it up and like dropped it there, but then, you know, also I was like, well, why didn't it eat it? When I asked Dominic about the deer leg, he just kind of brushed it off and was like, I don't know how that got there. I still don't know if he was involved in that at all. The next thing that happened is he told me that he was going to have a friend come and stay. And again, at this point, he was paying rent, was clean, was working, like, and he'd only acted strange a few times. So like, I don't know. I mean, we've all lived with people, I think, that have been weird in some way or another. And I really didn't want to go through the process.
Bro, after I seen him standing up in the middle of the night, if you watch part 1, go watch part 1. If I seen him standing up in the middle of the night, scratching the wall, saying he sold his soul to the devil, that would have been an indication for me to get out of that house very fast, okay?
Of like telling him he needed to move and then finding another roommate. I mean, would you, like, I was broke at the time. I didn't have any extra money. I didn't want to potentially kick him out, not be able to find anybody, and then have to cover that other part of rent. So like, nothing that traumatic had happened yet, right? I just thought this was some weird elaborate joke. So he doesn't tell me the details of his friend that's going to come stay, other than it's a girl. She's from out of state and she's going to stay for a week just visiting. So she shows up one day when he's at work. There's a knock at the door. He told me she was coming that day. He just didn't tell me what time. I answer the door. She's like, is Dominic here? And she's got like 3 giant duffel bags, and she's dressed in like really old clothing. Like I would go as far as to say that maybe she like made them herself. And she spoke very strangely. Like, I can't remember specific examples of things she said, but like it would be something like along the lines of like, if I spilled water, she would say something like, lament not o'er water spilled from the jug. Like, it was almost like old English, but that was the entire way that she talked. So anyway, I tell her that Dominic's at work and he's not there right now. And she says something along the lines of like, oh, I shall await his arrival in his quarters or something. And I'm like, okay. And so I show her his room, and she goes in there, closes the door, and like does not come out. And he gets home from work. I tell her he's there, or she's there. He goes in his room, closes the door. Don't see them. When I mean I don't see them, like, she did not come out of his room the entire time that she was staying with us for like a week. And he would only come out to use the bathroom. But I didn't even see her come out to like use the bathroom shower. And we had one bathroom. There was none like attached to his room or anything. So unless she was sneaking out of the window to use the restroom, like, I don't know how she was going until the last day that she was there. So she was staying like one more night, and I came home from work. I think I went out after work because I got home and it was nighttime, and I heard this weird howling from the backyard. So I'm like, what is going on? So I walked around the side of the house to the backyard, and I see they have like a fire going, and before I can even say anything, I see her, and she's basically got her entire arm like in the fire, and he's just like sitting silently in a lawn chair staring at the fire, like watching her like basically burn herself. Ran over because I thought she was hurt or something was going on, and she just takes her arm out of the fire and just sits there and looks at me. And I look, and like her clothing is like singed, but she doesn't, I mean, her arm looks fine. So I was like, what is going on here? And Dominic is staring at me, and he's like, don't worry, it's just a joke, just go inside, like, she's leaving tomorrow. And she just looks at me and she's like, I appreciate your hospitality, or like something weird. So again, I'm like texting my friend. I'm like, I need to get out of here. I need to fill you in on all this stuff that's going on, because at this point, like, I just didn't even want to be around him. Like, so I go out that night with my friend. She basically convinces me that I need to tell him that he needs to move out, because at this point it's too weird. I'm too shaken up. Like, I never want to be there when he's around. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell him that he needs to move. Like, I'm going to find another roommate. So the next day he leaves with the girl. I don't ever see her again. And then he actually started staying out more, which was awesome. It was like an answer to my prayers. Like, he would stay out for like 3, 4, 5, 6 days at a time. He would come home, he would go in his room, he would shut the door, he would go to sleep, and then he would leave in the morning. So that was like the ideal setup for a roommate, right? Like, we all want somebody that's never really there. So I'm like, maybe I don't need to ask him to leave. Like, maybe he just won't be here. And then there's one night I was dating my now husband at the time, and we were sitting out in my like driveway, just chilling, like hanging out. It was a pretty nice night out, although it was like late fall, I'd say. And we're just like talking, and we see this figure coming up the street and like walking toward the house, and it's like wearing a hood and whatever, and it stops in the driveway, and I realize it's Dominic, and he starts walking closer to us, and he looks like dirty. Like, his face is just all dark, and as he gets closer to us, I realize that it's like blood and dirt and like scratches, and I'm like, holy crap, like he got jumped. Like, that's what it looked like. And I like stand up, I'm like, are you okay? Like, what happened? And he just like shrugs, and he's like, it's fine, like I'm gonna go to bed. So he just goes in the house, and I'm like, what is going on? So my husband at the time convinces me that he's on schmugs. I can't say it, but he's on schmugs, because these are all behaviors of someone that's like that's dealing with some kind of addiction, right? Like staying out all the time, not leaving his room, acting erratically, saying weird things. So I'm like, okay, he's on schmugs. I'm like, he definitely needs to go. And like, we're kind of talking about it out in the driveway, and then Dominic comes back out, and he's just like asking about our day. Like, he still has all the stuff on his face, like acting normal. And he's like telling us about his day. He's like, oh, I went to work, and then you won't believe it, I found this weird party on my walk home, and I went in, and they had a secret dungeon. Like, he's like telling us all these crazy details, and as he's telling us this, he starts like contorting his body. Like, I can't even do the moves. It was like yoga on steroids. Like, he starts like doing these stretches, but like twisting his arms out of like, it almost looked like they were coming out of the socket. Like, I was so uncomfortable. So I'm like, do you need to go to the hospital? Like, I think you need to go to the hospital. And he's still stretching. At this point, he's like on the ground, and he's just like doing these weird like contorted motions, and he like laughs, and he's like, no, I don't need to go to the hospital, like I'm fine. So we decide that night, like I go to my then boyfriend's house, and we decide that the next day I'm gonna ask him to move out. I didn't work that next day, but I stayed out all day because I was just delaying the inevitable. I come home, and I find Dominic sitting on the couch whispering to himself in like just weird non-words. So I'm like, F this. I was like, we need to talk. I was like, your behavior is unacceptable. I would like you to find another place to live. Like, you can have till the end of the month. It was like maybe the 5th or 6th of the month. So he had a couple weeks. I was like, you need to go. And he just stares at me, like doesn't say anything, just stares. And he gets up and he goes to his room and he closes the door. And I'm like, okay, great. So he wakes up the next morning. He acts like nothing happened. I'm like, hey, we really need to talk about what I said last night. Like, you need to find a place to live. Do you have any options? Do you know anybody that needs a roommate? I can even help you find a place. And he's like, well, I think we can work something out. Like, I think I should just stay. Like, I need to be here to protect you. I'm like, no, I don't need any protection. Like, you need to go. Like, this is not working out. And I lied. And I was like, I actually have somebody that's going to move in at the end of the month. And from that point, he starts like kissing my butt. Like, he is trying to do everything that he can in order to stay. Like, he's like offering to do my laundry, bringing home like extra food. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to manipulate me. Like, you need to move. So fast forward up till the end of that month, he's supposedly about to leave. Like, I was very clear all month that he needed to find a place. At that point, he said that he didn't really have a place, but I really didn't care. And I just kept saying like, hey, my new roommate's moving in, in a few days. So hope you're ready to go. I'm in bed, and I heard whispering. Okay, I opened my eyes, and Dominic is standing at the foot of my bed with complete darkness. So I screamed, because obviously you don't expect someone to be standing at the end of your bed in the middle of the night. And after I like saw him, he just like literally just leaves the room and goes into his room and closes the door. So I call my boyfriend. I'm like, I'm coming over. I'm not going to stay at this house until he's gone. Okay, the night before he's supposed to move out, I'm sitting at the kitchen table. He comes home from work. I was writing something. I don't know what, maybe a grocery list. And he sits down like at my feet on the floor, and he grabs my leg, and he starts like kissing up my leg. It was so freaking weird, you guys. He was like massaging my thigh. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, he's like, I don't have anywhere to go. I need to stay here. I'm like, you're not staying here. Like, you're moving out tomorrow. Like, that's the plan. You're moving out. If you're not gone, like, I'm going to have to call somebody to come and get you, because you're not going to stay here anymore. It's like enrages him. Like, there was a shelf with like a bunch of like books and glassware like pushed up against the wall, and he just knocks the shelf over as he's like walking out. And I'm like, he's out later, and he's like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to move. I don't want to have to find a place. I'm like, you've had all month. I don't know what else to tell. He goes, okay, I do have a place I can go. Like, will you walk me over there? I'm like, sure. Like, I'll walk you over there. It was like a few blocks away from where we lived. So we leave the house. I was just like happy. He literally just packed like a couple bags. He's like, just sell everything else of mine. I'm like, okay, like you can come back and get it if you want. He's like, no, like I don't want it, just sell it. So we're walking over to this next house, and it's probably like 10 o'clock at night. And it wasn't a busy street, but it was, busy enough. It was a neighborhood. And we're walking, and there's this car like oncoming. Like I see it like, down a little ways in the road, and it starts driving close. And Dominic is in the middle of a conversation with me about how he's moving in with this new person who he told me didn't exist an hour ago. And as the car is coming over, he just walks out in front of the car. This video is ending. I'm posting the next part right now, I promise.
Whoa, part 3 is on the way. What am I speaking into? Right here? Alright, man. Y'all comment down below exactly what y'all think, man. This is beyond crazy. If I was her, I would definitely bless that house with the Lord's Prayer, put some anointing oil up. Ain't no telling what he was doing in that house and in that room. If I was her, I would move out and let Dominic stay in that house. Y'all comment down below what y'all think. Part 3 on the way today. Alright, if you haven't watched part 1, make sure y'all go ahead and tap in and go and watch that, man. Without further ado, I always say at the end of my video, stay inspired, stay motivated, stay grinding. Till next video, I'm out of here. Peace.